what's up guys? It's CovertCode here and welcome back to episode 23 of our Zero to Hero series. In the last video I showed you guys how to use module scripts and hopefully by now you know how to use them. And in today's video I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make and use animations, okay? So let me just delete everything from last time, you know, the usual stuff. There we go. And the first thing you're going to need to do, okay, is go to plugins and create a rig by using this build rig button right there, okay? You don't have to install any plugins. This should be, you know, built in by default, so you don't have to install anything. Just find build rig by going to plugins and just click that, okay? So now you're faced with this sort of little menu, okay? You have R15 or R6. Now, R6 is essentially this old sort of body type which Roblox used to use, and R15 is the new body type, okay? So this is R6, this is R15, and that's because R6 you know, has 6 parts and R15 has 15 total parts. Now, when you're animating, obviously designing animations for this is way easier, okay? But they look less fluid, and the opposite is true for this. So designing and making animations for R15 is harder, but they look better, okay? Now, back to the build rig menu. You have a ton of, like, selections you can choose from. I personally just always go with block rigs. You could also just go with, like, the mesh rig or something. That for some reason spawned that guy in. For example, if you click on the woman rig, spawning that, I don't know, it should spawn in different rigs, okay? Might be broken right now, but they should spawn in different rigs. Now, once you've got your rigs in your game, okay, these are essentially going to be your test subjects. So you're going to be testing and making animations on these rigs, okay? So if I click on the animation editor button right here, okay, and just click on either one, I'm going to be working with R15 because, you know, I think that they look way better, and they are slightly harder, that's true, to make. But I think that if you understand R15 animations, then you could easily make R6 animations as well, okay? So I'm just going to click on this, see how it sort of, you know, highlights or selects the dummy when I put my mouse over that. That means that it's something which I can animate, okay? So I'm just going to click on that, and it's asking me to create an animation name. So I'm just going to say test tutorial animation, okay? And you're just going to create, and there you go. This sort of grid came up around the dummy, okay? And that's how you know you're actually in animation mode. So a few things, guys. This is the timeline, okay? So let's say I want my animation to take 20 seconds for some reason. You would go to this, okay? So this means 1 minute. My bad, this does not mean 1 minute. Sorry, guys. This means 1 second, okay? And this also means 1 second, okay? So let's say I want this to take 20 seconds. I would just put in 20, okay? 20, just like this. And as you guys can see, it now takes 20 full seconds to completely finish my animation, okay? So let me just put this back to 1. So just 0, 1, just like this. And this number right here essentially is telling you where you are in the timeline. So right now I'm 0.03 seconds. Right here I should be 0.15 seconds. Yep. And as I move closer to the you know, the end, it should, you know, the number should obviously rise. Now these buttons right here are pretty simple to understand. So this means go back to the previous keyframe, and I'm going to show you what a keyframe is. Okay, this means run or play the animation, and whenever you play the animation, when you actually have keyframes, this will actually turn into a pause button. So, you know, if you press that again, it will pause the animation. And this essentially means go to the next frame, okay? And this just means loop the animation. So what looping is essentially, if you have a running animation and essentially you're just walking, okay, you put your hands up, you put your hands down, put your hands up again, your hands down, the animation finishes, okay? With a running animation, you want it to continuously keep playing, okay? So you put your hands up, down, and it never ends because, you know, you're walking. You don't want to just randomly be walking and the animation pauses for no reason, okay? You don't want that. That's where looping comes in. I'll actually show you guys how this works in just a second. Now, this button right here essentially is asking you to add something to your animation. So all of these are body parts, okay? So if you want to animate the head, you would click on the head, and now, as you guys can see, you've got this sort of, you know, frame over here. This is the head frame, and if you click on that, it will select the body part, okay? And right now, I am using the rotate tool, so if I want to rotate this around, I could just do that, okay? Now, if you want to be more precise, you could always just, you know, do this. So as you guys can see, I'm moving the head around. If I want to rotate, maybe I could do this. And if you just want to remove this for some reason, just delete track, and there you go. Now, few buttons over here, click on these three dots, and you have save, save as, import, export, create new, and set animation priority, okay? Let's start from the bottom. Animation priority is essentially, when we're going to be scripting this, you need to pretty much handle that every animation you play is at action, okay? So essentially, the core is the lowest priority, okay? Idle is, you know, one priority higher than core. Movement is the second highest priority, and action is the highest priority, okay? So imagine you're walking, and that's a movement priority, okay? And let's say you want to play an animation, like you want to flip. If you set it to any priority lower than movement, then it will not show up, because an animation with a higher priority, okay, is actually playing. So the movement animation, which I'm referring to is obviously walking in this case, is playing over that flip animation. Therefore, the flip animation will never show up. Ideally, always set animations that you want to play to action, unless, you know, they're actually related to movement, like, you know, walking, okay? So those are the animation priorities. I'm just going to set this to action, okay? That's going to help. You'll also set this from the script, which I usually do as well, just to be sure. Now, create new is essentially, you know, creating a new animation, pretty much. That's literally what we're doing here. So, you know how it asked me to create an animation at the start of this video? It's asking me to do that again. You could either delete this animation, which I was, you know, working on here. You could save it, or you could cancel, okay? I'm just going to cancel for now. Now, export is essentially uploading your animation to Roblox's website. So if you're done with your animation and you want to use it in your game, you would export it, okay? I'll show you how to do this later on. Importing is, so if you have an animation on the website, which is already uploaded, you could just import from Roblox and paste in the ID. Or Fbx Animations, this is essentially a sort of, you know, external file. So Fbx is a sort of external file, okay? So it's not from Roblox. You're just going to import this. Say if you're working on animation on Blender, for example, then you're just going to import this animation from Blender, essentially. I'm not going to go too far into this, but that's essentially what that does. Save as, you know, save and save as, pretty much the same thing, except save as, you need to do this for the first time. So I'm just going to save as new. So this will pretty much save the animation on inside of Roblox Studio, essentially. So if I click save, okay, notice how we have a model inside of our dummy called animation saves, and this is the animation, okay, which we've just saved. And you would do this if you're just working on your animation but you don't want to upload it on the site just yet. You would save it locally, okay? And that's what this does. And if you just made the change or something, then you would just save, and there you go. It saved the animation to whatever you named it to. Now, say I want to start working on another animation. So create new, untitled, there we go. But I want to actually load the previous animation because I forgot to change something. So I would just go to these three dots, click on them, and click load, and this is essentially going to show you every single animation which you've saved inside of the anim saves model, okay? So if I want to load this back up, load test tutorial animation, there you go. It loaded in the animation. Obviously I didn't really do anything, that's why it's blank, but usually it just loads in your animation, okay? Now let's actually get to animating. If you just click on any body part you want to animate, okay, I'm just going to click on this lower torso right here, okay? And let's do that flip animation I was talking about. So WASD, obviously, you know, same stuff, moving around in studio. Now, this rotate sort of thing here, essentially, well, it allows you to rotate. So this rotates it this way, okay? This rotates it this way, and this rotates it this way, okay? So if I want my animation to start from this position, I would go to the keyframe at the start, okay? Actually, usually you won't have keyframes, so just delete that. I'll just move this sort of line to the start, okay? And I just click on this and move it around slightly. As you guys can see, it actually created a node, a key, okay? And pretty much what that means is at a moment in time throughout your time frame, okay, something's happening. That's what a keyframe is. So you just click on that keyframe. You can delete this if you want to, okay? You can change the easing styles, easing directions. I won't get, you know, too much into this, but you can rename this. For example, if something's happening here, you're just going to say starting to turn or something like that, but I'm just going to cancel, okay? You can do a lot of things with keyframes, but essentially all you need to know is when something happens, a keyframe's there, okay? Now, as I was saying, if you just want the animation to start from here, okay, you would just do this, what I just said, and if you want your animation to end in a certain position, you would move this line to the end of the animation and click on the part, okay, which you want to modify, and just put it at the position you want it to end in. And in my case, I want him to land back on his feet. Something like this is fine, okay? And I'm just going to move this halfway, okay, so something like that. And here's where the magic happens. So if I want him to be upside down, you know, at the halfway point throughout this animation, you would just put it like that. So if I go to the start, as you guys can see, he's actually, you know, doing the animation. So if I click play, he's going to do this weird animation, and that's not good, right? So what you want to do is essentially just tweak this around. So if I just start from this position, okay, and I want it to end in this position, I don't want it to go back the way it went. So I would just go halfway here again, okay, and I'd actually position this in the way or the direction I want him to move in. So I don't want him to move forward, I want him to move back. Okay, so something like this, and now automatically it will go down. Actually, it's not. So let me just do something like this and delete this frame, okay? And obviously you could just do this manually, so you could just do something like this, and it's doing that again. You don't want that, okay? You just need to move around a few frames. So right now we're doing this, okay? That's not a bad animation. Let me just actually, you know, do a few things so you guys can actually realize what I'm doing. But essentially, all animating is you know, moving around keyframes, creating keyframes. That's literally it. Okay, so right now he's doing this, and I want him to go up slightly, okay, because he's literally going through the floor. So click on this, move him up, you know, like I said earlier, like this. And as you guys can see, he's now going up, and then he's going back down because this keyframe has a position of 0 on the y-axis. If I want him to like float up for some reason, you could always just set that, you know, way up high like that, but that doesn't make sense, right? So I'm just going to set it back to 0. Let's see what else I can do with this animation. So let's make his hands sort of go out like this. Okay, like this, and now he's going to do a flip. Midway, I want him to sort of, not that, I want him to sort of flaunt his hands out, just like this, okay? And then he's going to put his hands back in, just like that. And he's doing a weird thing where he's actually getting to the Y position way earlier than I want him to be. So he's doing that, essentially. He's literally falling down, and then he's levitating back up. You don't want that. So all you would do is, let's see. So he's doing that, he's going down. So what you would do, click on that keyframe and position it up, okay? And now he's not going to go down up until after that keyframe, okay? Just like that. And at the end, I'm just going to make him sort of do this like as if he's fallen or something, or almost fell, okay? My bad, I clicked on this guy for a second there. So he's just going to try and, you know, move his hand in front like that to prevent him from falling over. And I'm going to click on. My animation editor broke there. So whenever this happens, just close, okay? Click on the animation editor again. There you go. And that should be fine. Click on that, and you can move stuff around now. That's great. Now, he's just going to move his hands forward, just like this. And like that. I'm pretty much animating at this point. So that's okay, I guess, for tutorial. Pretty lousy animation. You'd have to put in more work. Okay, so this is a pretty quick animation, but essentially that's how you animate. You just move frames around. I know that's a pretty big oversimplification, but this is a scripting tutorial, so I haven't forgotten that, guys. I'm just telling you the basics of how to animate. So now we've got the animation done, okay? And I'm just going to ignore the warning for now. And I'm going to click these three dots, export like I said before, and I'm just going to change the creator here, okay, to my group, which is the CovertCode Flying Club. If you haven't joined, feel free to join. And I'm just going to call this tutorial animation. Just like this, I'm going to add a small description because it requires you to for some reason. So I'm just going to call this animation for tutorial. Okay, just like that. I'm going to submit this, and it's going to give you something very important, okay? And that's this ID. And essentially, this is just a unique number, okay, for your animation, which you're going to use to actually script, okay? So just copy this and store that somewhere safe. I'm just going to paste this in the command bar, okay? Hope I don't lose it, but there we go. It's in my command bar, and I'm just going to close this, and we're done with these dummies, okay? So let's actually script, okay? So create a local script. Now, it's important that you understand that you should use local scripts with animations. It makes them smoother, in my opinion. You could use server scripts, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong, but just to be safe, use local scripts, okay? If you are using server scripts, just use server scripts to animate NPCs, okay? So like a bar vendor or something like that. Just use them for NPCs, but use local scripts for your actual character, okay? So create a local script inside of starter pack, and actually my bad, just name it animation script, okay? I need to zoom in here for you guys, just like that, okay? And clear everything. Now, here's how you actually make the animation play. So the first thing you need to do is declare a variable, okay? Local player is equal to game.players.local player, okay? So this is just your player object. CovertCode in my case. In your case, it would be your player object, okay? Local player is always your player object. Now, local character is equal to player.character, okay? Just like this. And that's your actual avatar, okay? The thing you move around with and jump with and dies and stuff like that, that's your character, okay? Now, the humanoid, so local humanoid is equal to character, okay? Now, here's something you haven't seen before, probably, in this series. Wait for child humanoid. Okay, so essentially all this is you're waiting for the humanoid. Okay, let me just redefine that. When you use this, okay, dot, you're assuming it already exists. And what wait for child does, it actually waits for it to exist. Okay, so this is way safer. I can't really use wait for child for the player's character because, you know, that's not directly inside of the player object. So what you would do is, if the player.character does not exist yet, you would just do or, okay, player.character added wait, okay? So essentially you're telling it, hey, if this doesn't exist, then try this out. So essentially this is an event, so whenever the character gets added, it will return that character, okay? And you're waiting for that to happen, essentially. That's what you're doing here. This might be slightly confusing for you guys, because you've never actually seen me use that in this series, but just keep that in mind. It's a handy trick, okay? So, now that you've actually defined and found the humanoid, all you have to do is create an animation object inside of the script, call that animation, okay? And copy that valuable ID I told you to store somewhere, okay? And paste that in, okay? And now you've got the animation ID. And all you're going to do is local animation is equal to script.animation. Okay, so you just store that in the script. Now, here's the funny thing. Actually, not the funny thing. Here's the fun part, okay? If you just say local animation track is equal to humanoid load animation, you've actually loaded the animation inside of the humanoid. That's what this part means. You're loading the animation in the humanoid so it can be ready for use. So essentially, you just give it the animation object, okay, so this as a parameter, and then you just store that in a variable. And what this creates is an animation track. So it's essentially a playable version of this animation object, okay? You can pause it, you can play it, you can stop it, all of that good stuff. So two very important things which you should know about is animation track, okay, dot priority is to animation priorities dot these, okay? So these are the same things which I showed you in the animation editor, okay? So you've got action, core, idle, movement, same stuff. You could just literally set this manually. I always do this. I would suggest you would as well. So I just set this to action just to make sure that it overlays any other animation, just so that our animation actually displays on top. That's what this is. You're setting the priority of that track to action, okay? Now, animation track dot looped is another handy property. This could be true, okay, or it could be false. You could either, my bad, you could either have this loop, so I explain what looping is, or you could just not have it loop, okay? Unless it's actually set in the animation as true, so unless it's actually looped in the animation editor, this will always be false. But I'm just going to set this to false just in case, you know, just to show you guys how it works. If this is set to true, then the animation will always, you know, restart again and again. Now, our animation is loaded, it's been configured, okay? All we have to do now is play the animation. So animation track, play, okay? Actually, I'm just going to set this to true just so you guys can actually see it playing constantly. So let's play, and this should essentially just load our animation inside of our character object. And let's see. And as you guys can see, I'm actually just doing this weird, yeah, that's not flipping. That's, you know, as you guys can see, I forgot to actually, configure the, what's this? The lower arm, okay, and the hands. Just make sure to actually, you know, configure every single body part, okay? So if you don't want that body part to be a part of the animation, then don't add it. But if you want it to be a part of the animation, so if you don't want the legs to move around like this, okay, then you would add it to the animation. And the reason they're doing this is we didn't actually configure the legs. We just left them out. So the legs are free to be taken over by any other animation which is playing. And in our case, when we walk, it's going to be taken over by the walk animation. But as you guys can see, the torso is not doing that, okay? Because it's actually being controlled by our animation. That's the reason why, you know, this lower hand is doing that. So it's not straight like this one. And that's the reason the hand actually, like, you know, moves around like this. It's because it's actually being controlled by the walk animation, okay? And that's pretty much that. So just don't forget to configure every body part that you want inside of your animation, okay? So that's how you play an animation. How do you actually stop it? So I'm actually just going to wait 10 seconds, and then I'm going to stop it by just doing stop. That's literally it. So I'm just going to play, and after 10 seconds, it's just going to, you know, stop the animation pretty much. So let's just wait, and it should stop it pretty soon now. Okay, and there we go. It stopped the animation. It's no longer flipping me or attempting to flip me over. So yeah, that's the animation essentially stopped. So last few things, guys. So you could actually adjust the speed of the animation. So if you wait 3 seconds, you can just do animation track, adjust speed, okay, and you just have to give it one number. So 1 is normal, okay, 0.5 is, you know, half as fast, so it's, you know, slower. 2 is twice as fast, so it's really fast. and 0 is just pause. That's how you pause the animation, okay? So if I just set this to 0.05, it's going to play really slowly. Let me just remove the stop and play. So it's just going to play really slowly, guys. So wait 3 seconds, and it literally stopped me. See how it's really going slowly? That's what adjust speed does. It adjusts the speed of the animation, okay? So it's going to get to here and it's going to go back down very slowly, slow-mo, okay? That's pretty much all you guys really need to know about animations, unless you're doing like sort of advanced stuff, like whenever a keyframe gets reached, something happens, blah blah blah. You don't need to know that for now. This is just the basics of how to use animations, the very basics really of how to make them and how to make them work, okay? That's pretty much all I have for this video, guys. I would really appreciate if you just leave a like and subscribe, because I have a ton of videos just like this one, and I would just really appreciate it, okay? And if you have any suggestions about what videos I should make next, just leave a comment in the comment section down below suggesting what I should make next, and I'll see you guys next time.